Hello.
Hiya, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello
yeah,
there.
perfect. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're great. We're on a kind of, triple screen, but we're all good. Welcome to Facing the
Yes, it
Crowd podcast.
Thank you. Is it live or are we recording it?
I've already started recording, so
Oh, okay.
just so I don't forget, because that does
Okay.
happen. That can happen,
Okay.
but it
Just so I
hasn't.
know.
when we waffle on and we're sort of just saying hellos and stuff, we can edit them out. So
Oh, okay. So what
Yeah.
what did you want to, was there anything specific you wanted to talk about?
Well, we wanna talk about all the old school Headbangers Ball experiences you had, which is just what we know and love from way back. Obviously, you're coming back into music now, aren't you? After a long period out, is that right? With your new show, do
That's
you want to just
that's
go
right.
straight into your new show? It's so exciting. We want to hear about that.
Well, thank you. And this is just great timing for my new show because I've got a new program starting on Stax TV and Stax.com, which is a very innovative live streaming service. And we're calling it Heavy Metal HeyDaze. And I am the first presenter on Stax. And basically, I'm just going to be taking a walk down memory lane and playing tracks from the kind of heyday of MTV Headbangers Ball, and just telling some of my stories from that wonderful time in my life when I was traveling all over the world and talking to rock stars and going to massive concerts. And oh, well, it was just the best ever time. So it's great to be able to revisit it and relive those memories. And I've had so much support from Stax and also everybody I've told about it. They're all really excited. So I can't wait. And I think the first show is airing at the beginning of August.
Amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, some of those like videos have become like cult classic videos and on YouTube and stuff. All the interviews. Um, Remembering the Sebastian Bach at Donington '92 interview,
Yeah.
which I've seen so many times. I remember watching it at the time, and just we used to love those episodes. Monsters of
Oh,
Rock.
they were such good fun, and it was such a privilege to be able to talk to such talented, such committed, such passionate musicians. And I very felt very privileged that I was really just the conduit between the band and the fans. And that was a big responsibility, and I wanted to do a good job of it, and always show respect for the musicians and always try and give them the chance to express themselves, in their way, and actually ask proper in-depth questions so that they could really explain their inspiration and what inspired their songs and stuff like that. So yes, it really was awesome, and I'm very hopeful that if there is an appetite for Heavy Metal HeyDaze on Stax, that we will expand the format to include guest interviews and go out on the road and film concerts and just really go back to those heydays
Yeah.
of rock, which we're so fortunate to have been part of. It's very interesting. There was a comment on social media this week where somebody said, happy 40th birthday, MTV. Thank you for 15 years of great music. And
It's
I
so
feel,
true.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
feel that I was just there at that golden age of MTV when the music was just so incredible. The artists and live shows were just out of this world. And we saw many transitions through different phases of rock and metal as well. So yeah, Heavy Metal HeyDaze is where it's going to be going forwards, and it's on demand, so it's not having to wait up till Sunday night at midnight. Uh,
Yeah.
you can just watch it whenever you like.
It's brilliant. I mean, to be honest, talking to you is like it's amazing for us. You are like the queen of metal, and now you're back, and it's unreal that we're actually having this conversation. So just want to
Oh,
say
thank you
that
so
we're
much.
massive fans. When we
Oh,
grew
that's so
we
Oh,
kind of you.
I used to sit up until midnight just to
Yeah,
push record on the VHS.
Oh, bless you. Well, the great thing is that, since the advent of social media, I've had so many fans and headbangers get in touch with me and, showing an interest in what I'm doing. And it's just very gratifying that, I've still been there in the background for people. But now, thanks to Stax and Stax.com, we'll have this show going out. I don't know how often it's going to be. At the moment, I think it'll be once a month. But if it gets a high viewership, then I think, it will become more frequent, and we'll kind of expand the format. At the moment, it's just me introducing some of my favorite clips from Stax roster of music, and just talking about some of the things that went on behind the scenes at Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, great. So have they got all the footage from some of the old Headbangers Ball interviews and what have you, or is it videos? Is it going to be live stuff? Is it?
They've licensed loads of live
concerts,
yeah. And wow. They've also licensed some documentaries as well, and they've also started producing some of their own concerts. So it's very early days for Stax. Yeah. They haven't been going that long, and that makes it even more special for me that I was the first person they called and said, come back and do a show with us. So yes, it's in early stages still, but I have recorded the first show, and it will be going out hopefully at the beginning of August.
That's brilliant.
Amazing.
Definitely got the right person to bring back the metal. I love it.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, like you say, you always kind of kept so composed in amongst the mayhem of basically bands going to gigs, playing and festivals. It wasn't like the social media, like you say, so they could just let loose and just be themselves, and you was the composed, like you say, the conduit between them. It's a different world now, but I'm sure it's going to be just as good.
Well, the attitude of MTV was, if you were a VJ, it was, I'm very pretty, I'm wearing something interesting that you might aspire to, and I might have something interesting to say. I didn't subscribe to that at all. I didn't want to be a typical VJ, which was all about them. I wanted it to be about the bands, and I didn't want to be in the forefront. And I just think it's a different approach. If you ever watched MTV's Headbangers Ball in America with Ricky Rackman, he was very much the star of the show. And I can honestly say I didn't want to be the star. I wanted to be there to make sure that the bands had a chance to really express themselves, because one thing that I always respected is that the fans knew way more about music and metal than I did, even though I was very immersed in it, and I wanted to make sure that they got the questions answered that they probably would have asked if they were holding the microphone. So it was just a different approach, and MTV didn't like me as a presenter. I don't know if that's a known fact or not.
I didn't know that,
but
personally.
When they had like a rock weekend and so on, where they sometimes had these themed weekends, they didn't want me to present it, and I had to fight to get a wardrobe allowance and a makeup artist and stuff like that, all the kind of standard things the other VJs had. Initially I didn't have them, but thankfully a lovely lady at MTV called Tamsin really championed what I was doing and said Vanessa should have the same as the other presenters, and that's when I eventually got a wardrobe allowance and had a makeup artist and things like that. Up until that point, I was just doing my own makeup and hair and wearing my own clothes. So yes, it's interesting, obviously how I got started behind the scenes and so on. And I think perhaps because I kind of came from behind the scenes, maybe MTV didn't think that I should have the same status as a normal VJ that was on daytime primetime TV. So I don't know, it's all such a long time ago, and obviously I loved every second of it.
Obviously we're probably triggering some memories for you anyway. One of my questions was going to be, when you kind of went out to like report on a festival, how was the conditions for you? Because obviously in the 90s it was all a bit let's go kind of, what were the conditions? Because obviously not that many females around in the rock world at the time. Was it difficult for you to spend a whole weekend at a festival reporting on that, or was it you just went with the flow? Any memories of that?
Well, I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes, I was a female in rock, and I think things have moved on a lot since my day.
Yeah.
But sometimes on YouTube videos where I've been interviewing somebody, there's some comments like, "Oh, I bet she shagged them after the interview," and stuff like that, which I do find offensive, because that wasn't my style at all. I couldn't be successful at what I did if the bands didn't respect me and my knowledge. And I think it was just an incredible time. I remember that I was in Los Angeles, or I think it might be somewhere outside Los Angeles, filming with Danzig, and we did an interview. We filmed some of the gig. I flew back. I think it was a Wednesday I got back. I spent all Thursday in the edit suite editing that show to get it ready for Sunday night broadcast. Yeah. And then on Friday morning, Motorhead's manager called me, said, "Oh, Vanessa, we got the guys playing in LA. Would you like to come over and film and do an MTV Headbangers Ball special? And we'll book your flights for Sunday." So I went, but it was really hard work to take two 11.5-hour flights in such a short space of time, and to get used to time difference and work and everything. But I think it was just so much fun. I had people that I knew around me, my producer, my cameraman, and stuff like that. So it was relatively just a joy to do. I can't really complain about it at all.
Fantastic. I'll let Hobo speak.
You've obviously met everybody in that kind of world. One of the questions I wanted to ask is there any that are like completely different to like their persona on stage? If you see what I mean, like completely different to how you imagine they'd be.
Yeah, that there were a couple. One that I do recall is Kurt Cobain. Right. I was due to interview Nirvana at a festival. I think it was in Denmark, and we were told to stand in a certain place backstage, and the band would come and find us with their manager. And I was standing there, kind of looking around, and then I went like that, and Kurt was standing there, and all I can say is he had, I don't know if this sounds a bit hippie, sort of hippie-ish, but he had a very depressed aura. He was almost like caved in on himself. I can't really explain, but some people you meet have a very powerful aura. They're very charismatic. You really notice them. He was the exact opposite. And I was kind of nudging my producer, going, "Kurt's there." She's like, "Oh my God, yeah." And she did a double take as well. And yeah, I think in hindsight, obviously we know that he had, mental health issues, which we talk about a lot more 20, 30 years later than we did back then. But I think he was struggling then. And that was a very difficult interview, because all of the guys in Nirvana were quite tricky towards me. And I asked Chris Novoselic a question, and he said, "I'm a red rooster pecking at the dirt." And I thought, okay, where do I go with this? But I soldiered on. So I can only do my best.
Yeah, from like reading like a lot of literature and stuff about from people who have obviously interviewed Nirvana and Kurt Cobain especially. A lot of people say you had to get him in the right mood. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. But if he was in the right mood, then he'd just talk about absolutely anything. He sounded like quite an interesting character.
Oh, an incredibly talented musician as well. And yeah, I mean, maybe when bands are out on the road, it is exhausting. It's relentless. and maybe his energy levels were just low that day. But it was a privilege to meet him, and I'm very honoured to be able to say that I did.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So let's just rewind right back. If you can remember when you kind of first ever heard hard rock and heavy metal, and what did you think at the time? Was it an instant thing, or did you grow into it through the MTV thing?
No, I first heard heavy metal when I was about 12 or 13, and I was quite insular when I was at that age. And I think as you're going through adolescence, you're growing up, you're trying to find out who you are. And I was going through that, as all young people do. And I first heard Iron Maiden, I think it was, and something just struck a chord with me. And I just wanted to listen to more and more of that music. And, you know, it's just sitting on your own bedroom, listening to it on vinyl, as those were the days, because we're talking many decades ago now. And it just really spoke to me. So I'd always had an interest in rock music and metal music. And then obviously when I went to MTV, I was working behind the scenes as a production assistant, and MTV decided to do a rock and heavy metal show. And the first presenters were the Bailey brothers, who you may remember. And they did a version for MTV. But then MTV decided that they wanted to go kind of much more in line with the format of MTV's Headbangers Ball in the US. And so the Bailey brothers were no more. And then Christiana Baca became the presenter. And then she didn't really work out. And then I got it as a kind of temporary gig. I was only meant to be doing it for a few weeks while they were interviewing other presenters. But I obviously must have struck a chord somewhere. And I had so much support from the bands actually throughout my time at MTV, which I'm eternally grateful for. They were very supportive of me. And I think after Kurt Cobain died, and there was obviously in the Seattle music scene and worldwide, there was a lot of grief to process. Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam agreed to do one worldwide interview, which would be syndicated to anybody in the world that wanted it. And he asked for me to conduct the interview, which was an incredible...
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible honor. And I flew over to Boston, I think it was, and I met him after the gig. And his manager said, Vanessa, tread very, very carefully when you talk about Kurt, or in fact, skirt around it. If I were you, he said, it's a very, very sensitive issue. Eddie feels under a lot of pressure to talk about it, and he's not sure how he feels about talking about it. So I said, no, I understand. And we just had it was just like a talk between two friends. It wasn't so much of an interview. And as the interview went on, he gradually, without any kind of prompting or pressure from me, he just gradually started showing his feelings about losing Kurt. And it was incredibly emotional. And at the end, he came over to me and we both had tears in our eyes, and he hugged me and he said, thank you so much for your compassion and your empathy and your kindness for this interview. And again, you know, by that time we had tears pouring down our cheeks, and you know, it was a lovely, lovely moment, and it was a great honor to be asked to do that interview. And it went everywhere, all over MTV, all over the world.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Well, it must have been really hard for him to approach that subject, because I know when Kurt was still around, Kurt was very quick to always say how much he disliked Pearl Jam for a long time, didn't he? So I don't know exactly what Eddie's feelings were towards Nirvana, but you know, Kurt was always like, oh, you know, why are you in this industry if, you know, if you're just going to keep like saying that you don't want to be and you don't want the fame, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's an interesting
I think at
one.
the end of the I think at the end of the day, it was a very close-knit community, and you know, any suicide is devastating. I've actually had a close family member commit suicide about 8 years ago, and the repercussions from it you can't even begin to imagine.
No.
So it's terribly sad, and it does impact other people, and can really, you know, affect their mental health as well. And
of course,
you know, it's nice to be able to, you know, talk about these things now, because back in the day there wasn't such an awareness and empathy towards mental health issues. This is a relatively recent phenomenon for which I personally am very grateful for. I think it's very important to talk about it.
100%.
You know, but back then it was much more of a stigma about it. But I think, you know, anybody can see that somebody who is a rock star, who's traveling on stage all the time, doesn't have much time for family and friends, under pressure all the time, under the spotlight, being analyzed, criticized, anybody can see, you know, the pressure that would put somebody under. I think you have to be very mentally resilient and strong to deal with that.
Yeah,
of course. And people assume it's the greatest job in the world, but you know, it's obviously hard work, right? I mean, the fact that Eddie's like the last remaining frontman of that entire, you know, of that entire genre is crazy. It's just, it's very sad, you know, and the way all those guys kind of went.
Yeah, pretty much all the frontmen have gone, haven't they?
Oh, it's incredibly sad. And you know, they're sort of our era. And
100%.
gone. And it is really, it does sadden me whenever I sort of think about it, or I'll look and I'll go, oh my gosh, it's 15 years since so and so passed away, and wow, you know, it's very sobering.
And when you used to mix with these people every weekend, you know, I guess, well, and weekdays as well. And what was it like? Was it 90 to 97? You was on the ball?
Yeah, it was 1989 to 1997. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have the privilege of mixing with them. Another one, sadly, no longer with us, obviously, Chris Cornell. What a lovely, lovely man. I really got on so well with him and his wife, I think it's his first wife, Susan Silver, who was also their manager. And they were just wonderful, wonderful human beings. And you know, Chris, just a very gentle soul, very gentle. And you know, when I heard about what happened to him, you know, just devastating, absolutely. And as you say, so many of them have gone, and it's incredibly sad. But at least, you know, they left their music for us all to enjoy in perpetuity, and that's what
exactly. And we all still listen to that, right? Like, I mean, I'll still listen to Alice in Chains at least once a week, and I'll get shivers when I hear his voice, you know. And yet, you know, at the end of his life, so many people didn't care about him. They didn't even find him for 2 weeks. He was just like a recluse, wasn't he? But like you say, it's amazing that the music is still there, and you know, we still listen to it and cherish it, and that's what it's about.
I think you touched on something. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think you touched on something very important there, that he wasn't found for a while. And it's amazing how many of superstars pass away, whether through natural means, or through, obviously, you know, drug abuse or overdoses, whatever. They aren't found for a while, or they're found by a cleaner or a maid in a hotel room, and that's happened to so many. And that, I think, shows what life on the road can be like. You can be very isolated, and maybe you don't feel that you can reach out and tell people how you're feeling. You know, I think people with mental health issues sometimes feel that they're a burden on their family and friends, and they try and manage it as best they can. And I think if you were doing that out on the road on tour, when you're under so much pressure to literally perform and, you know, really deliver the goods every night, I think that pressure must have been massively amplified.
Exactly that. And I don't want to go off topic too much, but I've literally just had an alert come up on my phone that Sinead O'Connor's died. 56.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty crazy. Literally just happened. It's
Wow.
just come up.
Just got that come through.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Oh, that's shocking.
How old she
Just then.
Do we know the
56. No, it didn't say. No. It's, but I mean, I know. I think she had a lot of issues as well, didn't she? So,
yes.
who knows? I wouldn't want to speculate, but I'm sure it'll come out
Right.
in the next few days. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, let's talk about something happier.
Yeah, we've been a bit morbid, but you know, these are, I think these are good conversations to have. And
Exactly that.
you know, times have changed a lot since I was VJing on a Sunday evening for MTV, and you know, now we've got YouTube, we've got you know, Instagram, and we've got TikTok, and artists are able to reach a very, very large audience via the social web. And it is interesting because I think the power has very much been taken out of the hands of the record companies. You know, I think that's actually quite healthy, because now bands can build a fan base through the social media and the social web, and they can then have such a significant following that they can then, you know, command a really good record deal. And I do regard that as a positive development.
And definitely spread the word about when they're playing live, get more people to the gigs.
Exactly, yes.
That's good.
Yeah, and you can target the area where you're playing and all kinds of. There's all sorts of tools now, isn't there, for bands?
Oh, there is, yes.
Manipulate.
It's really been, the music industry's really been democratized in that respect. Because
but the days of those rock dinosaurs have gone. It's so sad. It's sad.
Yes, but you know, I think, you know, when something is a true classic, where, well, actually I would say it's timeless. You know, you can listen to it again and again, and it doesn't sound necessarily of its time. It's just, you know, it's just fresh, it's just innovative, it's just got that connection with the listener. And you know, we have got this amazing archive of music to draw on, and it seems to me that in times of trouble, which we most certainly are in at the moment, what with the, you know, COVID-19 pandemic and recovering from that, and all the economic uncertainty and the cost of living crisis, you know, in times like this, actually people return to nostalgia, because it helps them feel better, because it takes them back to a better time. And we all know that just listening to a song it's almost like a time, you know, transit. It can take you back to, oh, I was at Reading Festival when I first heard that song. And it you know, it can be really consoling to revisit these great artists that we've loved all our lives, and you know, they don't go stale, they don't go out of date. They're just great songs with brilliant performances, and they still resonate to us, whether we're 20, 40, 60 and beyond.
Well, me and Sam,
exactly that.
We're really guilty of that, aren't we, Sam? When we get together with our families and we have a few cans, and then we start taking over the Sonos or whatever. And it's just like taking it in turns to play the absolute classics. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Both our other halves aren't into heavy music, so it's always it's a bit of a contention there. But what can you do?
What about your husband Nick? Do you share the same musical taste at all, or is it totally different?
Well, Nick does actually really love hard rock and heavy metal. And when we were courting,
Wow.
I took him to Reading Festival, and Slipknot were playing, and we went out. We had backstage passes, but we went out into the crowd. And much to my surprise, Nick, he went down to the mosh pit at the front.
Yes.
And he was moshing along to Slipknot, and I thought, okay, he's all right.
In the
And
Slipknot pit.
eh?
You got in the Slipknot pit.
He did, yeah. So I thought, yeah, he's going to be okay. And he likes all types of music, but he does like rock and metal as well. But when I first met him, he had a kind of David Beckham haircut where he had the kind of little comb on the top. And we went to see Motorhead, and I went backstage, and I was chatting to the guys and their roadies and whatnot. And I said, "Oh, where's Lem?" And they said, "Oh, he's in that room on his own at the moment." I said, "Is it okay if I just go in and say hello?" And they said, "Yes, of course, go in." So I knocked on the door and I went in, and I said, "Lemmy, how are you doing? I've just brought my fiance to meet you. I just wanted to introduce you to Nick." And I'm not kidding. He looked round, he looked Nick up and down, and he went, "David Beckham's got an awful lot to answer for."
Oh, knocked him stone
So
dead.
I was like, okay, I won't disturb you anymore. But it was hilarious.
Oh no.
Oh, actually, that reminds me of your interview with Lemmy in that LA strip club. How did that come about, and how was that awkward? Was it weird? Was it fun? What was it like being around Lemmy sitting in a strip club doing an interview?
Yes, it was kind of weird. Lemmy, Lemmy was Lemmy. He was so unique. He didn't suffer fools at all. And he was quite challenging to to interview. But for the most part, I think he was okay with me. And I don't know if it's very well known, but after I finished at MTV, I continued to work with Motorhead, and I directed their video for God Save the Queen. And I also directed their 25th anniversary concert at Brixton Academy when they brought the bomber back.
Yeah, I have seen that online that you did that.
Yeah, that was awesome that I continued to work with them. And I did quite a few other bits and pieces with them, behind the scenes filming and stuff like that. So that kind of connection continued way beyond when MTV Headbangers Ball finished. And I was actually really grateful for Motorhead's and their management and record company's support, because when I left MTV, as you know, it was all very sudden. I can tell you about it if it's of interest. But
yeah, it is totally.
Okay, well, it was literally everybody, I think 200 employees were told on a Monday morning that they had to report to an office at another building, and we had time slots to go, and we went, and I had a time slot, and I thought, oh, what's this about? Got there, and there was a human resources person that I'd never met, and the executive producer, and it was literally, "Sit down, Vanessa. Okay, we're making a lot of people redundant. Unfortunately, you're one of them. We'd like you to go back to your desk, clear all your stuff out, and we'll pay for a taxi to take you home. And we don't want you to come back to the office because it will affect the morale of the people that are left here." And it was absolutely brutal.
Wow.
It was very much like, I don't know if you've seen The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, where they bring this managing director in to handle the transition. It was really as brutal as that. And it was such a terrible shock, because we'd actually had a new set made for Headbangers Ball at quite significant expense. And I thought, oh, this is great. We've got a new set and we're doing this, that, and the other. It was all just cancelled literally on that day. And I did go back to the office and I did collect my stuff, and I said goodbye to some people that were still there. And then I went home, and it was such a shock, because I went from having makeup and hair and wardrobe allowance and traveling and being at concerts and backstage passes. I just went to having nothing to do. And there aren't too many jobs being a TV presenter of heavy rock. So it was very challenging for me to sort of think about getting something similar. I knew that it wouldn't be possible. So I had about 6 months of feeling very sorry for myself, sitting around in my gym jams all day, sending out
That's been such
letters.
a shock.
It really was. And then I got a call from an old friend at Sony Music, and she said, "Vanessa, are you doing anything?" And I said, "No, what you got in mind?" And she said, "Oh, we've got this new artist. We wondered if you would be interested in doing some kind of behind the scenes filming with him. We need you to go to Miami next weekend." And I said, "Okay, who is it?" And it was Ricky Martin.
Oh,
So I ended up doing something completely different. And I did a lot of work behind the scenes with Ricky Martin, and traveled all over the world with him.
wow.
And really enjoyed that experience as well. And that was really the start of my next incarnation, if you like, because I started producing and directing music programming for artists. And I was working with people like Coldplay, Kylie Minogue, Luciano Pavarotti, lots of different artists, Bon Jovi. I did some work with them, did some more Motorhead stuff, did a lot with Ricky Martin. Dido, I did a huge amount of work with Dido. And yes, so I kind of had to evolve a little bit there.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so did MTV, but unfortunately not in a good way. It's a shame.
I don't know what you guys think of what happened to it. I'd be interested to know your thoughts, but to me,
I haven't watched it for years.
well, it just wasn't about the music anymore, was it?
No, exactly that.
It was all kind of reality programs and
like MTV Cribs and
Cribs and all that.
The one they do up the cars and then like the girls. It ended up being like girls pregnant, young girls, but didn't it? I'm sure it did. It was bizarre. Their music I think it died when Headbangers Ball died, but that's just coming from a metaller's point of view, which I know is not true.
Truth be told, they got rid of all the specialist interest shows on the same day. So they got rid of MTV Raps, they got rid of the alternative music show, they got rid of the dance show. So they cancelled all of the specialist interest shows. And I think those specialist interest shows are so important because in those days there wasn't really anywhere else you could get that type of music. I mean, obviously now in 2023 we've got something like Stax where you can just go and download and stream anything you want, which is absolutely incredible. But back in those days it was very limited where you could get those sort of videos played and those kind of interviews. And it's amazing to see so many of them being transferred from VHS and have appeared on YouTube.
It was crazy because we had Crusher on the show very early on when we started doing the podcast, and it was amazing. And he said exactly the same thing. It was just literally canned overnight, and he was just gone. He was just out on his ass. Just what? You've cancelled it? And Headbangers Ball disappeared the same sort of time, and it was like, so that's it then, man. We got nothing.
Nothing.
And sort of the Kerrang TV came along and you could see the videos again, but it wasn't really kind of presented much, was it? There wasn't many presenters on it. It was just like a revolving same videos.
Yeah. Even now, like when I do switch on Kerrang, it's like the same 4 or 5 pop punk bands and nothing else. They don't play anything old school. It's very, very boring.
Vanessa, I had a memory and I kind of wrote it down. I actually stood next to you. And you was with Ricky Warwick at the time. It was the Sepultura Slayer Kerrang X Fest at the Astoria.
Wow.
Supported by System of a Down. And we were up top in the seats, and we never go in the seats. It's all we could get. We were always on the floor. And like you and Ricky were standing like 2 or 3 meters away together watching the show. We were just up the top smoking joints, just looking over, going, "Really want to say hello to Vanessa," but just didn't have the.
No, you wanted to say hello to Ricky.
Oh, yeah, and Ricky. But we used to love the Almighty, so yeah.
Yeah, bless him. I mean, Ricky's gone on to do so well. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, I'm going to the comeback show actually in December, so that's going to be good. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, what was the first ever like live band you ever saw? If you can remember back that far, you've seen so many, but
this is going to be really embarrassing.
it normally is for everyone, isn't it?
It was Wham.
Oh wow!
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, we got to admit it, whether you liked Wham or not, George Michael was incredible songwriter, such a talented guy. Again, gone too soon. But I think one of my friends dragged me along to that. But you know, I think I've been so fortunate to see so many amazing bands in so many amazing locations. And people often say, is there anybody that you haven't met that you would like to meet? And I would say yes, Debbie Harry. I never met Debbie Harry, and I would have loved to have met her. She was a big influence on me, particularly with the old bleached hair, which I've still got years, decades later. So yeah, I mean, I was just so lucky to, you know, to meet all these amazing people.
Yeah, who kind of stands out most to you?
In what respect?
Sam?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, who kind of stands out most to you as, like, you know, the kind of person who is like the most kind of like interesting to actually interview?
That's a really hard question. Obviously you've got larger than life characters like Sebastian Bach or Ozzy Osbourne, and then you've got more I think somebody I always had a lot of respect for was Rob from Judas Priest. Very down to earth, very kind human being again, not egotistical at all, and always wanted to give of his very, very best. And I think I would say the same for Iron Maiden, again, you know, and Def Leppard, actually, all British bands. Yeah. But you know, those guys, they weren't egotistical. They were very normal, down to earth people. But I think what was clear from my time with them on the road and at concerts and interviews was that they cared so much about the fans, and they were so grateful to the fans for their support, and everything that they did was planned so that they could give something back to the fans. So, you know, even walking from their car to a hotel front lobby, that they would stop because there would always be fans there, and they would stop and they would greet the fans and they would have pictures taken. And you know, they were never these egotistical people that just wanted to you know, march on past. So all of those guys were just, you know, really, really lovely to be around, and just very, very committed to what they were doing and wanting to give of their best. And I think that obviously really, really shone through. And you know, still going to this day. How amazing is that?
Yeah, they're outright professionals, aren't they?
Yeah.
They year in, year out. I've seen all three of them, and you know, it's just always a top quality performance. They
Always.
They don't ever slip away from that, do they? They just keep performing well year in, year out. Doesn't matter, age doesn't affect them.
No, they really do. And I've got so much admiration for that, because to be on like they are night after night playing 2-hour sets is an incredible achievement. I think the level of physicality to do it is very high, and the mental fortitude to maintain those levels of energy as well, I think it is very high. So I just got nothing but massive respect for them, that they're still doing it night after night.
Yeah, I mean,
and like bands like, you know, you've got like Guns N' Roses now, have been touring now for like 4 or 5 years. They just haven't stopped, have they? It's
No,
just insane.
Absolutely incredible.
I'm not being funny, like, you know, Axel especially is, you know, he's over 60 and he's still doing it every night. It's just insane.
Well, I'm over 60, so yeah,
No.
still hanging in there. Yeah, I'll be 61 next month.
wow.
So
happy early birthday.
thank you. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome that they're still going and they're still performing at such high levels.
Yeah.
And still doing it with that passion, and their desire to, you know, put on a really great show.
One of the tapes I always used to watch, and I say tape because I had it on tape, was the '94 Monsters of Rock special that you did, which I actually went to. And you interviewed Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell backstage for that. Can you talk about those two guys? I mean, it seemed like such a fun, friendly interview with those guys.
They were just adorable. They were such lovely guys. Again, down to earth, very funny. I went out on the road with them in the States, and my producer was with me, Sarah from MTV, and we just had the funniest time. I remember it with such fondness because we were on the tour bus with them, and they were being sponsored by this hot sauce company. Okay. And they had these they opened this drawer in the tour bus, and it was absolutely piled high with sachets of this really, really, really hot sauce. And they were like,
Sounds
come
like
on, Vanessa and Sarah, you got to snip the top off, shoot it straight. And they were trying to get us to suck down these this really, really hot sauce, just neat. They were just going like this, you know, taking it down. And honestly, there was no way I was going to try it. But we had a really, really fun evening with them. And they dropped us off at our hotel. I think it was about 4 a.m, and we just went straight to our room and crashed out. And I woke up in the morning and my friend Sarah, she had a beer in one hand, and then she had this kind of see-through backpack, and it was absolutely stuffed full of these hot sauce.
They put them all in there, did they?
And she was lying on the bed with all this beer in one hand and this rucksack of hot sauce sachets in the other. And I just cracked up laughing. And we just laughed the entire time on that trip. And I was so sorry to hear about their passings as well. Absolutely, you know, so tragic. They were just lovely people.
They were proper rock stars, weren't they? You know,
if you let us, me and Sam would literally just ask you about every single person for like hours on end. I just love this. It makes for great podcast. All these stories are amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, you know, those were such great times for me, and I remember them with such fondness. And it's actually, I really appreciate you guys asking me onto the podcast and revisiting some of these stories, because they're locked away in my memory. And so many people say, oh, you should write a book. Maybe I should.
Oh, you should.
Oh, 100%. I think it would be a brilliant book.
Well, putting you on the spot, it's not a taxing question, but what about best ever live performance, a set you've seen where you just thought, this is the pinnacle of, I can't believe, you know, how good it was?
Oh, that's a challenging question.
Yeah, I thought it might be. Seen everybody.
I'm really.
I'll just give us one then, but don't say it's the best. Just one memorable one.
I think one of the ones that I would say would be when Queensryche performed the entire Operation Mindcrime album. That was incredible. Let me think. I mean, Korn, awesome live band. Machine Head, awesome live band. Rammstein, incredible live band. Love Rammstein. I think there's such humor in what they do. A lot of people are offended by it, but
I think that's the point, isn't it?
well, yeah, but actually it was hilarious. I found a lot of what they did it had a very dry kind of subversive sense of humor, and I absolutely loved it. There's just too many good bands to mention that I've seen, to be honest.
I do remember that you really did champion Machine Head when they first come through. You went to interview them and the Astoria gigs and all that. And you really did championed a hell of a lot of bands back in the day, didn't you?
I did, and I had to do it with kind of the team around me. I wanted their input as well, and we also had a playlist meeting every week. But I was in a fortunate position that I think champion is a good way to say it. And Machine Head, I think, as soon as you heard that album, you knew they were just an absolutely killer band, and just incredible. And they were a band that I did help a lot. And I recently, and it's funny that you mentioned them, I recently got a gold disc for Burn My Eyes. So that's 30 years later. They sent it to me, and I've actually got it in the other room. So I've got my husband, we've got kind of like a spare room in our house, and I got lots of gold discs and platinum discs and other bits and pieces from artists over the years, and it's all up on the wall in there. I should have really done the interview in there.
Man. We could have gone through each disc one by one until midnight,
They sent me a gold disc about, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, so very recently.
How kind is incredible. That?
Yeah. Is there many people from like those bands that you're still kind of in contact with, like regularly, that kind of thing?
Not really.
Still, like, did you make any good friendships there?
I did, but I think because I'm not in the scene anymore per se, and my life took a very different turn. I wouldn't say that I'm really in touch with anybody other than my old colleagues and friends from MTV, and they often send me messages from bands. In fact, somebody that I hooked up recently with was Chris McCormack. He got in touch with me because he is also into property investment as well, which is what I'm doing now.
Is he really? That's interesting.
So we arranged to meet up at a property show of all things.
Right.
He wasn't able to make it in the end, but we're in touch via Facebook Messenger, which, by the way, is brilliant for reconnecting people. I've had all sorts of people get in touch via Messenger. So I will meet up with him for a lunch or a coffee or something in the next few weeks when I'm next up in London. So yeah, I mean, I know that if I ever saw any of these old friends again, I know it would be straight back in. We just pick up where we left off. So, and it was like that when I recorded the first edition of Heavy Metal HeyDaze, because it was my producer from MTV that's helping me. She's producing the show for me. And we just kept going, we've got the band back together. And we just had so much fun doing it, and we just slotted straight back in. So I think with what I'm doing with Stax, hopefully I'll get to see some of my old friends again. I mean, I was very friendly with Sharon and Ozzy, and Sarah's already saying that we might be able to do something with them. So yeah, I hope to reconnect.
All right. Well, this
amazing.
Is brilliant. We have our last question for you, and it's a real easy one. It might not be. It could be tricky, but as you were a VJ, we normally say, can you send one song into space for anyone to hear? Only one song to project out there. I know it's really stupid, but we're doing it anyway. Project out there for any other life forms to hear. One song, but can it just be you choose one of the metal videos that you used to play. Only one to shoot up there.
Oh my God.
That's
I wish
hard.
you'd
That's
given me
Take a
hard.
little
notice
time. You can take a little time if you want.
given me notice of this one. I'd have to give it some thought.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question in between then, while you have a think. Can you remember the first video you played on your first show?
No.
No. Well, that's
Damn
the
it.
end of that
Did you not
one.
research it and find out what it was?
I don't know. I don't.
I know the first song that was played on MTV, but
Yeah.
my mind's gone
It
blank.
was Video Killed the
Oh,
Radio
It was Video
Star.
Killed the
That's
Radio
it, the
Star.
Buggles. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that always comes up in pub quizzes. Always.
On one video, Vanessa. One
Is
video.
it the video or the song?
Oh, you can do one of each.
Yeah, one
Oh,
of
you're
each.
can tell us
simple enough
the
doing
song.
one.
It's the best you can do with video and song combo.
Oh, blimey. Well, I don't know. Is this to introduce aliens to heavy metal or something?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Yeah, that kind of
We've
thing.
been serious all episodes, so now let's go with this.
Okay. Well, I think it would have to be something classic, not too extreme.
Don't want to scare them off.
Well, no, we don't.
Or do we?
Gosh, I'm really struggling with this.
Go with your favourite then.
Probably. Oh gosh, it's a nightmare to do this. I'm racking my brains.
It's green jelly, isn't it?
I would probably say Marilyn Manson, Beautiful People.
Oh,
it's a great video.
Amazing. But that's going to scare them off, but we'll still go with it.
Well, yes, it is, but it's a brilliant video and it is catchy. And a lot of these songs have got real hooks in them. So yeah, I think that would be something to make somebody think, make an alien think.
Fantastic choice. I love that. Absolutely love that.
It is a good choice.
Vanessa?
No one's ever said that before. We've had all sorts, but yeah, we've had from Bob Marley to I don't even know anymore.
We haven't had,
There's been a lot.
What would you guys choose? I'll put you
no
on
one's
the
ever
spot.
asked us that.
Oh no.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
Well, I did say you could be mine on one other episode when we done 44 days of music, that the albums that were all released within 44 days. It was Nevermind, Pearl Jam 10, the Guns N' Roses, the Black Album, and I chose You Could Be Mine, Guns N' Roses. So I used to love that with the Terminator clips in between the live performances.
Yep.
So I can't really back away from that. So I'll stick in with it.
I like that one.
I'd probably throw. It's a cliche, but I'd probably throw "Smells Like Teen Spirit" out there.
Well, it's such a classic, isn't it?
That's the only reason I'm going with it. And if I'll be thinking about this all night, and I will be changing my mind every 4 minutes, and that's a guarantee.
I think I'll be changing my mind every 4 seconds. It's a really hard one to do. It really is, and because we're so blessed to have so much choice of so much great music from this era that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's still great music out there today, you know, and there's still bands coming out. And
we champion bands on here. We have bands on that we think are great, and hardcore bands and other bands up and coming, as well as obviously classic people and TV presenters that we love. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a little toe still in the scene because my niece is an artist called Alien Blaze. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Okay.
But she's signed to Sumerian Records, and she's an incredible guitarist and songwriter, and she's very, very talented. She's only 21, and you can look her videos up on YouTube. She's just done a collaboration with Omen 13, and I'm very excited for her because she's got the whole package of what it would take to be successful. She's very, very talented songwriter, brilliant guitarist, and very good singer and performer. So watch this space, Alien Blaze.
Oh, we'll have a look.
Amazing! No, we'll certainly check that out.
Vanessa,
maybe she could come on the show.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
why
that'd be
not?
good.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We'll say thank you again. It's been one of the, most interesting chats we've had. The stories, the memories. It's been brilliant. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, I
Yeah,
can
thank you
thank
so
you
much.
guys for asking me. It's been a real genuine pleasure taking this walk down memory lane with you. Just thank you so much for even thinking of me after all this time, and for giving me the chance to talk a little bit about, coming up with Heavy Metal HeyDaze on Stax TV and Stax.com. I hope some of your listeners and viewers will join me on Stax.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
definitely
sure
put
they
that in
will.
the write-up.
I'm sure they will.
They'll be waiting for it. They were waiting for the date for that to come out.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Okay, then. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your time.
Bye.
Take care.
All the
Bye.
best.
Bye.